Good morning, my brothers and sisters. One of our brothers, Brother Mark from Rivers of Faith, put out a word today that stirred my spirit. I wanted to share with you a little bit. Matthew 18. Jesus says, "Unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven." This is in the New King James Version. So unless we are converted and become like a child, we cannot enter heaven. I compared it with the other Gospels. If we remember, these are eyewitness accounts, the four Gospels. And anytime four witnesses see an event, they will describe it slightly different. So in each story, I try and piece the four together and get the fullest picture. In Luke, it's slightly different. He says, "Then they also brought infants to him, that he might touch them. But when the disciples saw it, they rebuked them. But Jesus called to him and said, 'Let the children come to me.'" Infants. That made me start to think. What are the iniquities of an infant? Well, it's pretty basic. It's survival. In the flesh, it's hunger, warmth, cleansing, to be cleaned, protection, right? In the spirit, if I don't address the generational things, the iniquities of the fathers to the third and fourth generation, as it says in Deuteronomy, Exodus, and other places, Psalms, ignoring that and just keeping it simple, in the infant itself, I could argue there's none. But at some point along the way, the iniquities of the spirit as a child, we start to see things like fear, resentment. In fact, I even heard a sermon a while back talking about how it's possible that even in the womb, a fear of resentment, a mother that wasn't prepared for a child to come at that time, the infant can pick up a spirit of resentment and be born with it. A mother who's in a bad situation and has a lot of fear, the infant can pick up the spirit of fear and be born with it. But keeping it simple again, at some point along the way, children start to, because of environment and watching their parents and the things that happen in their lives, they pick up fears and resentments and jealousies and anger, right? They begin to pick up these iniquities in the spirit. But as an infant, as Luke describes in Luke 18:15, the infant that came, they're pure. They're about as pure as a human can be, of anyone born of a woman of flesh. And so then I'm back in Matthew 18 wrestling with, unless we are converted and become as little children. I've heard the question this last couple of months several times. How do we know if we're born again of the Spirit? How do we know if we're living in the Spirit, the Holy Spirit is with us? How do we know when the Holy Spirit's with us and when we've grieved the Spirit and it departs? I would offer that once someone really surrenders themselves to Jesus and to the Holy Spirit, change begins. And that change never stops. Usually it's the big things at first. And you get those big strongholds, those big bondages broke off. But even from the, as one of my pastors says, the grandmas in the church, the wise grandmas in the church, but the elders in the church, they're still being refined. The dross is still being burned off, and the silver is still being refined. And the edge of the two-edged sword, the word of the gospel on their mouth and their lips, is still being refined and sharpened. But change, that's one of the key indicators. The things that used to excite us no longer do. It may even grieve us. The things that we used to go after and strive after, there's no longer that desire. There's a desire to be in the Spirit and to dwell in the Spirit and to develop the fruits of the Spirit and to go after the things that are of the kingdom, to no longer store up things that moth can destroy and rust can destroy, but the things of the Spirit that are everlasting. So change is a big indicator. And I think that we know we're in the Spirit when that change is ever present. And we're continuously denying ourselves and seeking to pick up the cross and to move further along the pilgrimage, further along the narrow path. And when the old man, when the flesh self sets in, that's an indicator that we've stalled out. When we get comfortable and we want to stay in a place that's nice and cozy, and that's an indicator that we're ignoring the Spirit, or we maybe even grieve the Spirit. But it comes back to that infant being transformed like silver, being transformed back into that spirit of the infant. That it's just the basic needs that God will provide for us, and there's no other want or desire of this world. That we are converted, as Romans says, transformed and not conformed to this world. Here in Matthew 18, converted and become like children, like infants. I hope this feeds your spirit today. I hope you're blessed. As it says in Romans 15, may the God of hope bring you peace and joy.